Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And we are going to do, likely going to be our final play test, for ourselves anyway, for the Global War 1939, the great historical board game offering. Came out a little over a decade ago now, and has gone through a little bit of I'll say a renaissance. Headed up by Triple Crown and myself, and then we had some other people join on. Captain G, CB's Bill, Hambone, Gargantua, and everybody's had a little bit of a say in what's going on. This guy's in the wrong spot. And we are now going to see how balanced it is, because that's always the thing, right? You want to make sure that a game is balanced so either side can win. But you also want to have some historical accuracy. So we've added quite a bit of that, and also added some new units. If you haven't seen these other videos recently, we've got some great new units in here, like the Fairy Swordfish. And we've got some Chinese cavalry going on there. And there's a number of other ones I won't get into right now. We have differentiated, though. If you see on here, you see the posts with the green and then the pink beads above. The pink beads mean that they're veterans or they're special fighters. So we've got the fighters, the Messerschmitts here, and then we've got Spitfires here. The ones with just the green are only Hurricane. Now, I shouldn't say only Hurricanes. That was a venerable aircraft of the Royal Air Force for years. But here we are. We're all set up and ready to go. We got the Graf Spee down here, ready to do his thing. And if anything on this table looks nice, the painting or the plates and all the rest that they're sitting on, that is courtesy of Sky Marshall, my good friend up in Prince George. If you haven't been over to his channel, please head over to Sky Marshall's channel and sub up, because he has some of the nicest modifications, and his table is second to none from what I have seen. So now that music that you heard before was from a very famous World War II movie where eagles dare, and then they started talking, so I've shut it off. But they've started talking, and I should probably stop talking. We're going to get down to it. We're going to get the Germans going, and in this game, Germany gets 2 turns in a row, so to speak. They get to do their first turn, put on their build, and then have a second turn. We call it the second impulse, in which case Paris typically falls and Warsaw typically falls. So it's kind of a double whammy for the Allies. Most of the British home fleet tends to be at the bottom. Sometimes you're able to save this one over here. Really depends on the dice roll. Of course, after Paris falls, you're going to roll for all the ships and all the territories around the board. And there's a number of them, as you know, even down here. This one here, I always keep my eye on, because if that goes Axis, it means the Japanese can land planes on it. And over here, there's some decent money here. It's $4 for Southeast Asia. And if it goes Japanese, well, it's easy money, easy pickings for them. And lastly, just going to point out the veteran infantry here for the Japanese, and they punch quite a bit harder. And Japanese infantry, they all defend at a +1 on original home territories. That's all the yellow territories. That includes islands and whatnot. So they're pretty tough at home. But if they're fighting on their home territory, the war's probably not going too well for them. And Calcutta, very lightly defended. Japan could easily take it on a couple of turns if they wanted to, but that tends to bring the Americans into the war much more quickly. And last thing I will point out, I'm going to point out 2 things. These structures here, these are military bases where you can build infantry class units, and they do get taken over when somebody goes in. So, and then over here we've got colonial factories, and the colonial factories here are able to allow the British or whomever is building there, it's typically Britain, they've got one in New Zealand as well, can build units there, 1 per round. And as soon as I said it, that these things here get taken over, actually they don't. I believe they do get destroyed. I'm going to have to look that up. There's a few things that we've gone back and forth on, and I haven't played this for a few weeks, so I'm going to have to go back and check that out. Lastly, we've got the sub chasers, and these guys here are actually torpedo boats. So got a few of those laying around and going to do their thing. And armored trains. My goodness, there's a lot of different things on here I keep seeing. Armored trains, air transports. Those are the ones with the light blue beads. Everybody starts with one of those. I'm going to stop talking about all the different units because I got to tell you, there are so many, and it's a fantastic way to relive World War II. So I'm going to get into it right now, and we'll let you know how it goes. In this game, Germany goes, then Japan, then the Soviet Union. So Italy goes last. So the Axis have all their turns in a row, and then the Allies have all their turns in a row. And you just keep doing that cycle over and over again. And previously, it looked like the Axis tended to do quite well in this game. Now it's a little bit more balanced. And we'll let you know as we go along. Now, I'm choosing to do this at the start of a school year because there's nothing better than stacking on a massive game right when you start teaching instead of doing it in the summer when you actually have the time. But I didn't this summer. But I am teaching some new courses, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if I can pull this off without making too many mistakes. Wish me luck, folks. All right, before you know it, we'll be right back with the end of round one. All right, so we're done round one in its entirety, and now we're going to show you the chaos that has happened. So, as happens quite a bit in this game, fleets tend to group together, and you got to put them on task force cards. So I've done that already here with the American fleet. This fleet is actually off the coast of Panama, the west coast. And that's what's happened there. So the Anzac, of course, does the opening notes that they are wont to do. And we had FEC come down here. And this is a very difficult game to play with other people, but playing it by yourself is insanely difficult. And so there's a good chance I'm going to mess up a rule here and there. And so some of you who are experts in this new stuff, so CB's Bill and Triple Crown, Hambone, and Captain G. If you see that I have mismoved something or did something wrong, you let me know. I'm still working through the rules as they go as well. But the Japanese here decided to build couple of transports out here. Now I'm going to tell you what the plan is. The plan is to hit the United States of America proper on turn 3. Yes, turn 3, which means at the end of this turn, they're going to have to grab as many transports as they can and get out to the middle of the ocean where they can then take San Francisco. Now I know that. The American player would not know that. Right? Because that brings America into the war on turn 3 when it could be turn 5 or 6 or 7 before the Americans get into the war. So, for my part, I'm going to try to play like a typical American player would play, which is protect the fleet, like get the fleet out of harm's way. So they're headed over towards the Atlantic for now. And I didn't build anything. I saved all my money, all $20. And then, of course, I get the 23. So America's got, I think, $43 to spend next round. Okay. Japan, though, did not go hair on fire into China. Took 3 territories, and Guangxi here was taken back by the Chinese, the loss of 1 infantry division, and just kind of playing defense. So I brought over a bunch of bodies, just playing defense, and hoping to withstand what's coming. But again, the Chinese player typically would not stick his neck out, because if he came here, well, he can get hit by, well, not much stuff there, but the whole Air Force could come and hit it, and it's going to really weaken him. So the typical Chinese player will kind of stay put, maybe build a little bit, do 1 spoiling attack here. Now, the communist Chinese don't really have a lot to live for, so I came and took these 2 empty territories, a couple of bucks. And as the Japanese player, I will likely take it back because I would want them to know that, hey, you can't do that on my soil. If I didn't take it back, then everybody at the table is going to know that I am headed eastwards. So I've got to keep the illusion up that, yes, I still want China. I just don't want to take China all in one piece here. I am going to give it the death of 1,000 cuts over probably 8 or 9 rounds. I'm not going to try to finish her off quickly. Now, problem with that, China is going to become a beast. China's going to be collecting at least 13, 14, 15 bucks each round, right? So that's 5 extra Chinese infantry going on the board here. Meanwhile, I'm going to have to actually build factories here. And I didn't make a lot of money as Japan last turn. I made 38, I think, 37. And that's not a lot of cheddar when you're trying to poke the bear that is the United States of America. So that could be a problem. We'll see how that goes. FEC again, not knowing what's coming, just built 3 men and said I'm just going to hold on here. So built 3 men in the outskirts here in the military bases and moved the 3 that were in there to start the war, just move them into Calcutta. And the Burmese infantry division backed up. Again, trying to play it as though I don't know that America is going to be under siege. Over here in Africa, we have the South Africans moving up, and actually I let them go and take Liberia. So they made $5 this last turn because they got the bonus. If the UK Commonwealth has 8 transports on the board between all the nations, they get an extra $1. Canada gets 2, I think ANZAC gets 2, FEC gets 2, and Britain gets 5. UK, Europe gets 5. So we try to keep those transports going. Now the Graf Spee came down here from its base in Argentina, came across and attacked this poor little transport. Okay, now it doesn't have a naval port, right? So it's 1, 2, and then on the second impulse comes and kills the South African transport. Then the British have 2 destroyers and a transport here. I brought them down. They didn't get a hit. Graf Spee got a hit, so I retreated back here. And then the non-com had the South Africans come over and take Liberia. So if South Africa will likely take Belgian Congo next round, that'll give them $6 per turn, and that's where you start popping out the tanks, right? And send them north. Up here, the Italians making a nuisance of themselves. And here is the Italian Navy. The entire Italian Navy is here except for 2 little subs. They're parked right up here. Now, why did they go up there? A couple of reasons. One, the FEC fleet merged with the Mediterranean fleet here. The fleet that was, well, the 2 destroyers and sub that were off here merged with a destroyer and cruiser that the British got for free from the rolling of the French, Vichy and Free France rolls. So, yeah. And that's just too much. Now, the Italians could have come over here and killed this. They absolutely could have come over here and killed this. But then their cheese is out in the wind, as it were, and the British would likely be able to come in and finish them off using that and using a couple of bombers. I thought, well, I need the air cover. So I parked them in there. I built a sub and a destroyer, and also, of course, the requisite factory in order to keep pace with UK's factory. So that's where Italy is right now. The Greek fleet got sunk, the coastal battleship and destroyer, I believe. And then there's the Yugoslav destroyer here. And you'll see that the Britain has both of these territories. Well, how do they do that? Well, in this version of the rules, transports can drop off from one sea zone into 2 different territories. And so I thought, well, gee willikers, I am going to try this out. So they get a nice bonus. They get $6 instead of just the 2. And they've got quite a little army here. And Germany has only 5 infantry in range, and they can't have any attacks come from Hungary or Romania until they're at war with the USSR. So they'd have to use all their air power to take out Yugoslavia. Now they're gonna have to do that. That's the unfortunate part. They're going to have to do that. because you cannot leave that and that alone till the British turn, because they're just going to, well, coalesce somewhere and just wait, right? Britain might even build an industrial complex, maybe. I don't know. Actually, I don't think they can do that. But anyway, that would just be such a huge headache on the southern flank. And Italy does not have the economy to deal with it, and Germany doesn't want to have that headache. Now, speaking of Germany, we have gone full Russia. We sent far more stuff this way and barely took Paris. I mean, I guess it's not too terribly bad, but only 6 units remained, and didn't even have the horses to go after Normandy or anything. So it got rolled for. Marseille got rolled for. They both went free French. I ran out of free French roundels, and then this went Vichy. Bordeaux went Vichy, but then the French crawled into there on their non-com and took it. North Africa, all of it went free French. All the money went free French. And then this was actually Vichy, and I thought I'd just take it with that guy. And then the Vichy got all this stuff here that doesn't mean a whit. They even got Madagascar, which does mean something if played properly. But then Free France got Syria, and Free France also got Southeast Asia. So very good rolling, but 90% of the boats got scuttled, just gone. The Germans ended up with a destroyer, and the English got a destroyer, I think, in the English Channel, but that is it. Heading up here, the Germans, I forgot to put their little tags on, but they took Denmark, Oslo, and Narvik, so they're getting some bonus cheddar for that. And they did get a coastal battleship from Norway, so that's what they've got left. The British did not feel like they could go and hit that fleet, so this is what they have in the English Channel right now. They got a battleship, they've got 5 destroyers, a cruiser, a sub, and a transport. This is what they have off the coast of Cairo, so 2 battleships, 2 cruisers, a destroyer, a fleet carrier, and an escort carrier. So pretty decent fleets left for the Brits. This is nothing to sneeze at, especially when they have the air power, but these guys here cannot reach the English fleet this turn. So I've told you what I was going to do with Japan. What I'm hoping to do with Russia or with Germany is just go and clobber Russia fairly quickly. Unfortunately, Russia did not roll very well on their income. They only got a 9, and America got 13, so right on the bubble, right? And so since they only got 9, it really doesn't make any tactical sense to go into Russia early. So I will likely build up a little bit more over here and take my time building forces up a little bit, getting Bulgaria. But I may have to, unfortunately, go into Yugoslavia sooner rather than later, and that's going to be painful. But that is what it is. I'm going to let the Germans take Marseille, and not too worried about Normandy and Bordeaux right now. They're not very important. So I'll probably just build some infantry in Paris to get some meat shields going for the campaign later on. We already saw the South Africans liberate Liberia. But over here, the Americans, again, didn't build anything, just brought everything into the eastern seaboard. And there's their little fleet. Canadians, of course, lost their 2 transports and destroyer to the U-boats, but just built another transport in order to gain that sweet, sweet bonus money. All right, well, that is round 2. Hopefully, or round 1, pardon me. We're headed to round 2. And hopefully, I can get a good Japanese assault on San Francisco on turn 3. It's going to be difficult because I've only got the 2 transports. But again, as the American player, if you don't know what's coming and you got no real navy, you've got that navy right there, but that's it. So, do you bring the fighter back from Hawaii? What do you do? What do you do? I left the American stuff here, and That's not typically what an American would do. So I'm going to move it now. And this guy can get to wake. So I'm going to do that just because that's what they should have done. Again, when you play by yourself, sometimes you forget the obvious. All right, round 1 is in the books. Round 2, hopefully in not too long a time. And we will see what we see. All right. Will my grand plans work, or will they fall apart? Time will tell. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And it's been a little while that I've had a chance to carry on with this wonderful game. I've only done round 1, but now we're looking at round 2. But before we begin, I just want to show you some neat things that your friend and mine, Sky Marshall, sent to me. He sent me just a handful of units, just being a nice guy. And look at this. I just love the paint jobs and the just the attention to detail that he puts in. And they're so easy to identify on a table. You can be a mile away and you can see what's what. And I just really enjoy that because my eyes are getting old. But and here's some planes here. They don't have decals on them, so a little nondescript, so I can kind of do with them what I wish. But they are all primed and painted and ready to go. And so thanks a lot, Sky Marshall, for your continued support of my little channel here. I very much appreciate it. And he also sent the medals and the fruit salad, as it were, the little bars that have all the neat little extras on them that you have seen before. So from the Sky Marshall Cup here in 2023, where I got second place on my table and third place overall as the Comintern, which was a very, very difficult game for me to play. And yeah, I don't think I could have done any better, though. Fantastic opponents on my table, and just happy to be a part of it. So without much further ado here, we're going to get on with our round 2 of our 1939 game, which you have just seen. It's actually been about 2 weeks. I've been frightfully busy at work and with some other things I've had to deal with. And now, though, I've got a Saturday morning where I really don't have anything to do yet. And and if you're a husband or a dad, and you know, you get to your weekend, and sometimes you got to get up early in the morning to get things done, because you know that although you don't have any jobs planned, maybe someone else will have some jobs for you. So I'm going to get this done as soon as I can. All right, round 2 coming up, folks. And once again, Sky Marshall, top shelf, sir. Just top shelf. All right, round 2 is in the books, and guess what? Guess who's coming to dinner right there? And we have debated back and forth about whether or not this factory should be a miner. Now, in early iterations of Global War 39, it was similar to the Global 40, where all of the factories were miners for America, because they really weren't wanting to go to war. They had no interest in building weapons of war or developing high-tech weapons of war or anything like that. They were into consumer goods, and by the time the 30s hit, of course, with the Great Depression, war is very expensive. So they were all about trying to solve their financial woes, not get into a shooting war. So we have decided for this playtest, what we're going to do is throw a military, you can see that military base in the western U.S., and restrict the Americans to building 3 units per turn in San Francisco. Now, I'm trying to play this solo, which is very difficult. So thinking like an American player, with the Japanese last turn, everything was over here. All right, really wasn't looking like they were going to be heading east. So didn't build anything at all, and didn't lend lease anything to China or anything. Now this turn, what I did was, now that the Japanese are here, sorry for the quick camera movement there, but now that the Japanese are here, obviously I'm going to try to build things. And so I have built 3 guys there, and I built a guy in the western U.S., and I moved in everybody I could. I railed in all the guys from the east, brought in all the aircraft. All Japan has here is 4 guys and 6 planes and some bombards. Now, of course, with a sneak attack, none of this stuff will get to shoot back on round 1. But even if the Japanese get 50% hits, which is above the curve, they're still going to have infantry left here, plus they're going to have Air Force. And the Japanese, although they might take San Francisco, are likely going to have to lose some high-value stuff doing it. And then, as you know, they get to do, after their sneak attack, they get to do a non-com. So they'll be back in this position here, possibly 1 territory north. Meanwhile, the American fleet has come back. So this fleet here has come back because they are not in danger at this moment of a Japanese sneak attack. They're not in range, and then they can exert their will a little bit in the Pacific after the fact. And again, I don't have to attack, right? This could all be a feint, which makes the Americans, spend all their money here, and I don't attack. So, but I do have a follow-up of 4 Japanese transports and 8 infantry units. So I could go make an imperial nuisance of myself in Alaska, BC, and the Pacific Northwest, right? All the while, hopefully taking San Fran. Meanwhile, the rest of the Japanese fleet has tried to get to places where it can cause the most problems. So I have it here, although there is no naval base they can use right now. There are 2 transports, lots of guys that I can pick up and go assail the Philippines with a sneak attack, which would make the Fort Drum absolutely useless and the Marines likely dead. Down here, of course, when the Japanese want to do something crazy like this, it opens up the Money Islands to the Commonwealth nations. So all but Celebes have been taken, and that is it. Siam, I added a Japanese infantry in there through the power of the military base. So there's not a lot of stuff there, though. With a concerted effort, the Anzac and FEC could likely take Siam. Yeah, it'd be close. But was able to build a tactical here this turn. In China, of course, the Chinese are scared to death of the Japanese and their Air Force, which can exert a whole lot of love and affection on them. So they're kind of staying back and out of this. And I know, speaking with Triple Crown, he loves to give tanks to China, right? While the Burma Road is open, just send over tanks, which is a good idea for China. I'm glad I didn't do it, though, because that would have weakened the Americans as well. And they did not roll well on their money. They rolled a 13 the first round, only a 9 the second round. So they're sitting at 27. So gameplay-wise, it really isn't wise for the Japanese to attack America this turn. Right? It just wouldn't be smart. So what might be smarter is for me to take these 4 transports, load them up with 8 more units, and bring it over. Because the most that America can bring in, they built a couple of aircraft, and they've got a Marine over in the far eastern side that they could bring over. But beyond that, that's it. Whereas the Japanese could bring another 8 meat shields, as it were. So maybe I'll wait a turn. Maybe I will. But if this were a major factory, I'd have to go now because, well, the Americans would have built 10 units in there instead of just 3, of course. And then it's a non-starter. So that's what we're thinking here. We're thinking knock it down to a minor so that the Japanese always have the option. But as we can see, in so doing, they only got 3 Chinese territories here. They are 0 threat to FEC. They are 0 threat to Sydney. 0 threat to the Money Islands, really. They've only got 2 transports here. And if they load them up with these guys and go to the Money Islands, well, the Philippines will hold. And China will be resurgent. And that's really not something you want. So I think this is one of those really good things. I want to get your feedback, though. Triple Crown and I are really curious to say, do you think we should knock this down to a minor, a la Global 40, and, make it temptation for the Japanese? Or should we leave it as a major and pretty much take it right off the table. Okay, we want to hear your thoughts on that. Over here, Calcutta, of course, just grabbing the guys from the outskirts and bringing them in, and then building, like I said, a tactical and a transport. Hopefully go get some more guys out here and maybe exert a little bit of pressure. Here we had an attack on Iraq that did not go really well. Lost 3 infantry taking it, but took it nonetheless. And there you have it. Over here, Italy, it's being very Italian, and they have decided to come out of hiding with their fleet and parked it right off the coast, and this is what's there. And what's facing them is right here. Plus the British have a tactical that could take part in a battle. And then there's 2 ships that they have here. Likely going to get sunk by the Germans this next round, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. We had taken the British fleet here and divided it up amongst these territories, and I brought a destroyer out to here because the Italian fleet could actually have come here and may have actually taken Cairo, because there was nothing left in there, just a couple of guys. So they could have taken it had I not put up a blocker. So sacrificed a British destroyer to stop them. This is what the British have sitting off Cairo right now. Of course, next turn I could throw 3 destroyers down. Yeah, there's lots of things I could do that would likely thwart the Italians. But the Italians do have a couple of tacticals and a fighter here. So, and they do have a bomber. Might be able to bring enough stuff. The French Foreign Legion, just having fun. Lost a couple guys heading into Tripoli, but we're able to take that, putting a minute bit of pressure on the Italians from the west. In France, had some fun. The Germans took everything, and because of that, they were able to get a free Czech Hedgehog in Bordeaux. That's an instant kill on any amphibious assault. Right? You just pull one thing off before you even start rolling dice. So that's handy. But then the Canadians said, oh yeah? How's it going, eh? And dropped down into Normandy all the way from Canada. Brought everything over and had some fun there and killed a mech without a loss. So that takes away the German ability to build a Czech Hedgehog or a coastal gun in the territory until they're able to take Normandy back and have at least 1 unit all along the Atlantic wall, which they did have. Not much else to talk. Oh yes, Yugoslavia. The Germans had to attack Yugoslavia because there just was a good chance that these Brits would get together with the 6 Brits and the fighter and the anti-aircraft gun that were in Yugoslavia. And had they not attacked, they could have just marched right in because there's not much in northern Italy. So it's a good thing they decided not to leave that alone. And they had a very successful assault. In the first round, they only got 2 hits, but all of the Yugoslav units missed. And then the air power for the Germans was able to balance the scales on that one. Over here, you'll see that the German Kriegsmarine is no more. That is true because the British sent everything they had, fighters, bombers, tacticals, every ship in their fleet over here. And the Germans scrambled. So the Germans lost 3 veteran pilots, which is very costly. And they lost their whole fleet, which is very costly. But the British lost their entire fleet, plus 2 fighters, plus a ferry swordfish, plus 2 bombers. So they lost everything. So they're rebuilding now. So they built 4 destroyers to protect the lone transport that was there. So this is what the British fleet, the home fleet, looks like right now. There's a Canadian transport in there too. Not much. But since all the German air power, I had left the 3 fighters behind as a scramble, but all that German air power is out of position and couldn't do anything this round. Well, that's pretty much it for what we got going on here. This is what I built here in case the Japanese do land and have some fun. I'll have 1 infantry on the west coast plus these 2 planes. Might be able to exact a little bit of revenge on the Japanese. But the dice will tell us, will Japan attack this round, or will they wait around? Because if they wait around, the Americans have $30. Again, they did not roll well. They'll have $30 to build whatever they want to build, I guess. But it might not be enough. We shall see. Stay tuned, folks. Very exciting round 3 coming up. Pivotal. Okay, I thought I'd just pause the game at this point and show you something that rarely happens. So yes, Japan here on round 3 did its sneak attacks and had a successful attack here. They had no business winning it that easily. They didn't, or they might have lost 1 infantry, maybe. But yeah, that was really simple. And here, they only went in with 2 guys and 2 bombards, but it was enough. That sneak attack is pretty devastating stuff. They took Burma, brought a tank, and then brought a guy from Siam. Just kind of reaching out a little bit here, kicked out the commies from this area. All right, so they're consolidating. They ended up building another factory there. They've got this one here. We built a heavy artillery. It's expensive. It's $6, but it's 2 dice at 4, so that's nice. And then built a factory here in Siam as well. And then landed the whole Air Force there because you never know what these pesky Frenchmen are going to do. But the thing that really has turned this game on its head, pardon my shadows, is this. Yes, San Francisco has fallen. And the Japanese lost a fighter and a tactical taking it. But their sneak attack rolls, the first round, they were, I think all the bombards hit. And almost all the planes hit, if not all of them. And so by the time the Americans got to roll back, yeah, they got a couple of hits. They ended up getting 4 hits total. And I decided to keep 2 units there instead of just 1. So I lost a plane, actually lost a fighter to keep an artillery there. And I'll tell you why. Because we also landed here in the Pacific Northwest, and we also landed in British Columbia, and we also landed in Alaska. All right, we're also convoying them there. And this is what the fleet looks like. And this fleet moved too, so they're out of the way of the American fleet. So this is what it looks like. If you can't see the stack there, a couple transports, you got a couple cruisers in there, and a couple of battleships, a sub, and then all the carriers that you see. And the Americans have this. So they've got 2 battleships, 2 cruisers, a couple of destroyers, and a loaded carrier. But on the other side, try not to get you airsick here. On the other side here, all America has is that's essentially a medium bomber and a tactical and an artillery and a marine. So they can rail them across and likely take San Fran next turn. I might take a poke this turn. Now, the reason for that would be, obviously, you want to take back San Francisco. But if I can take it back, then I can possibly start to rebuild here. Right? Build some stuff. I'm going to build stuff in the east that I can rail over next turn before this infantry comes down. But I can't construct any more navy. Neither can the Japanese, not in this area. So this would be an interesting fight, but I don't think it's one Japan wants. I think Japan is likely going to take its navy and slink back across the Pacific in a couple of turns, get home, and by then, hopefully, they've been able to consolidate their holdings here in China. But that is the Japanese sneak attack. They also took out a couple of British boats here and a Dutch boat. Took out the Canadian transport, I think I mentioned that, and took out 2 American boats that were here off of Guam. But now America's in the war, but they only have 67. They've got $67, and they're not going to get any bonus because their bonus is tied to holding on to their 3 victory cities, which typically is a gimme. It's a $20 gimme, but they're not getting it this time. All right, so we're going to be on with the Communist Chinese and the USSR now. And we'll show you how that all goes along with everything else from the rest of turn 3 right after this. Whew, what a mess. All right, so quick roundup. The Japanese were kicked out. I brought over the bomber, sent in one infantry, said I'm going to give this one go, see if we can't get rid of those pesky artillery, and yes, took them out in the first round, no hits back. So San Fran is back in American hands. They got their $25 bonus and moved their fleet right next to San Fran, so it shall not be invaded again. Well, it might. That'd be an interesting battle, I'm here to tell you. That'd be interesting. Hard to say. Problem for the Japanese, though, is that the Americans were able to marshal a decent force over here. So, it'll be interesting to see what we see. You've seen all this already. Down here, Anzac came over here with a fighter, and there's a British destroyer and a Dutch cruiser, and they went after there were 4 Japanese destroyers and 1 sub, and they were unable to destroy them all, but they got a few of them. And so the Anzac decided, well, the getting's good. So they scooped another couple bucks, came up here, sank a Japanese submarine right there, built 2 of their own, and built a bomber. Now, you say, why a bomber? Well, because this is a rare build down in this corner of the map, and sometimes you can really surprise a Japanese transport or two that's just kind of lurking about. Now, transports, again, do defend at a 1, so they're not entirely toothless, but not very dangerous. Over here, as we can see, pretty bulked up, and built some heavy hitters here. Look at that. So drew in the 3 infantry and built 3 tanks. So FEC is not to be trifled with. Over here, the KMT took back Kwai Chao, but didn't really want to muck about in Shenxi, what with the Japanese Air Force is lurking here, but they've also got their veteran troops, so decided to back off a little bit. And there are 2, count them, 2 factories there, and 1 in Siam, so the Japanese will be focusing on that. As I mentioned before, their fleet will be scurrying back across the Pacific. Up here, the Soviets continue to move some things into the Far East, brought over a couple of air transports and built 2 guys in Novosibirsk. Who knows where they're going? The big mystery. Over here, the British finally get a nice bonus for having all of Iran and Iraq, so that's another nickel for them. A neat little sideshow here. South Africa has scooped a few more bucks. They were able to take a couple off the Italians, so they are now up to 6. And then they get the bonus if the Commonwealth has 8 transports on the board. So they built a tank this last turn. Look at that. And they'll continue to build tanks as time goes on. Speaking of tanks, you're welcome. The tanks were built here as well as an anti-aircraft gun, because I didn't know how the sea battle was going to go. Well, what sea battle? Well, the sea battle between these 2 fleets. Oh, mutual destruction, ladies and gentlemen. The only thing that survived was a tactical. So the entire Italian fleet, minus the sub, which was not in that zone. Sorry, folks. I guess my phone was full. Not exactly sure what I was talking about, but I know that these 2 fleets destroyed themselves. And so what I had to do was I thought a little defensively, built an anti-aircraft gun because I knew that the Italians had lots of air power. But now with no transports or anything, Cairo will be safe for 1 turn, but the Italians did build 3 tanks. So that's 5 tanks they have here, lots of air power. So Cairo is definitely not out of the woods yet. South Africa, maybe that's what I was talking about. Yeah, so they're building tanks. They got $6 plus 7. Anyway, plus 1 for 7. You know what I'm talking about. I kept the French Foreign Legion back this time, as the moving into here for a buck would probably just end up in the death of the rare French Foreign Legion, and I kind of like these guys. They're pretty cool. Attack at a +1 and defend at a +1. Not much else going on here. We've got the British decided just to hold tight, but now that the Italians can't get to them, only Germany can. We'll see if the Germans declare war on the Soviet Union this turn. The Soviets rolled a 21, so they're up to 44. And they need to just get to 48. So it's highly likely the Germans will go in, although they're not really prepared for war because of this sideshow over here. And yeah, what a pain this has been. And their Air Force has taken a beating this game. The Canadians built transport, or they didn't build a transport, they had one from last round and brought the other one back from Britain, and they're sending everything westward because of those Japanese. And a fun little rule that we've added is that the Americans can build an infantry. It still costs $3, but only costs $2 this round because they just got attacked, in any spot in North America that has an IPP value. So they could have built down here in Panama if they wanted to. That's an American holding, but or in the Caribbean, you know, I'm sure some soldiers would like that. But there we have it, folks. Before my camera runs out again, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm hopefully going to be able to finish this game off sometime this week or next, and you'll see the complete video. But that's it for now. As we always say, hug your loved ones. Thank your friends for playing whatever games you play. These are so much fun. And may those dice be with you.